Hi, welcome back to the New Testament in a year. It's day 155 and we're in the end of Acts 1 and Acts 2. And in today's reading, we've got one of the most well-known passages in Acts and a particularly well-known part of the whole Bible. And it's what some would call the birth of the church. And it's the most amazing account of the Holy Spirit turning up in power. And he comes on the believers and they speak in other languages. And those other languages cause the crowd to ask some questions. And I'll come back to that in a moment. First of all, how does the Holy Spirit show up? There's a gushing, a mighty wind, and there's what appears to be like tongues of fire resting on them. And both of these the word wind and fire, are so associated with God himself. So in fact, the word wind and spirit are the same in Greek and Hebrew. And so that in itself, this coming of the wind is the spirit coming. And we see throughout the Bible accounts of the wind and also the breath of God as being like a sign of life. So like in Ezekiel, when the wind enters into the army that had beforehand just been a valley of dry bones, and that's when life came into them. We see that not only did God breathe his breath into Adam right at the very beginning of time, but then also Jesus in the Gospels, I think it's in John, breathes into the little crowd of his believers, his followers that are waiting for him, and he breathes their life. So this whole idea of wind and spirit, it's life. And so just as the same way that that God breathed breathed life into the first ever human, again we see life now being breathed into this gathering that would be established as the church. And then fire. So many times in the Bible, but you've got, particularly in the Exodus account, you've got the pillar of fire that guided the people that went ahead of them at night, and the smoke in the day, but also the fire that rested on Mount Sinai when the law was given. So basically, at the establishment of God's people then was fire, and at the establishment of God's people now is fire. And fire has always symbolised in the Bible both the presence of God and the purifying nature of his presence. So here we've got God himself showing up and resting on his people, and as he does that, it caused questions. Some of the groups say, what on earth is going on, which is a great question, and some of the groups say, surely they're drunk. So two really different kind of questions, maybe coming at it from a very different point of view, but two questions that need answering. And that's exactly what Peter goes on to do, and we get the beginning of his sermon today, and it'll carry on tomorrow, and where he just leads them up, and he talks, and where it ends today, that with this amazing promise, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Everybody, this is for all of you. And I love that even the mirror then of where, as the Holy Spirit rests on them, they were able to speak in all these different languages. That in itself is like this clue almost of just how widespread this is going to go, and how this is for everybody. And I love too that it was the work of God, the work of the Holy Spirit, that raised the questions that then God's people, in this case Peter, were able to answer. And again, as I said yesterday, I want that longing to come in alive in us, that God's work would be so prevalent in our community that it would raise questions that by his grace and with his power we would be ready to answer. That's my prayer for all of us today. Have a good day. God bless. See you tomorrow.